Hey friends, welcome to or welcome back to another episode of Cold-Blooded Serial. I am your host and true crime bestie, Tika. Where we last left off, Richard began breaking into homes and setting them on fire. He killed a man who was unloading groceries. He killed a 22-year-old bride as she was cleaning her home. And he killed a lot of puppies. He blamed all of this violence on his mom not inviting him over for Christmas dinner. Now, the police are still trying to catch this monster before he strikes again. But the problem is, they have no leads. Now it's the evening of January 24th, 1978, and the 27-year-old killer calls up his mom, and he's just like in a very good mood. She said that he sounded extremely happy, which is so sick because it's like you just murdered two people. You recently attempted to murder a child and just a random woman washing dishes. And you also just murdered a puppy. So now you're like happy because you received the blood that you've been looking for. I don't know, but it's really sick and twisted that this is like the first time in a long time that he sounded happy. 3 days later, on Friday, January 27th, 36-year-old Evelyn Miroth was supposed to send her 6-year-old son, Jason, to go play in the snow with her best friend, Neon Grangerd, and Neon's 6-year-old daughter. So Evelyn tells her best friend, Neon, that her boyfriend, Dan Meredith, needed to run out and grab Jason some winter boots. So Neon's like, okay, no problem. As soon as he gets back, I'll grab Jason and we'll go. Neon sees Dan, who's 51 years old, pull into Evelyn's driveway. So she's like, okay, any minute now, Jason will be crossing the street and we'll be on our way. Well, an hour and a half passes and Neon is like, hey, 6-year-old daughter, run across the street and see what's taking Jason so long. So the little girl goes over there and she quickly comes back and she's like, Mom, I saw movement in the house, but no one opened the door for me. So Neon is like, oh my God, like what the heck is going on? All I want to do is get you guys to this mountain so we can go sledding. Neon starts to go over there. And as she's crossing the street, she is hit with like a really bad feeling. Like, you know that feeling in your gut when you just know something's not right? That's how Neon is feeling. So she sees a neighbor and she's complaining to this neighbor like, I don't know what the heck is taking Evelyn and Jason so long. We were supposed to be gone like an hour ago. But like something is just like not sitting right with me right now. So the neighbor's like, Neon, don't worry about it. I'll go check. You stay here with your little girl. The neighbor goes over and the door was already unlocked. So she's like, well, you know, we live in a peaceful neighborhood. Nothing ever happens here. I'm just gonna let myself in. I'm picturing her walking in, probably calling out to Evelyn. Well, when she gets to the living room, she sees Evelyn's boyfriend, Dan Meredith, lying on the floor with blood around his body. She shrieks and she runs out of the house screaming for someone to call the police. There's a sheriff nearby, Sheriff Deputy Ivan Clark. He is the first to arrive to the scene. It's around noon, so he's like, oh, Dan is probably passed out drunk. Sheriff Deputy Ivan Clark enters into Evelyn's house. He sees Danny Meredith laying on the floor. He walks over to Dan, and this man has 2 bullet wounds in his head. Now, the sheriff is like, well, we know that Evelyn has a 13-year-old son in school, so he's obviously not going to be a victim. But where is Evelyn's 6-year-old son? He found a trail of blood that led to the bathroom. He follows it, and the bathroom floor was covered with dark red stains. The bathtub was full of bloody water. So now Deputy Ivan Clark is like, what in the world is going on? He looks on the floor. He notices a second trail of blood that led to the master bedroom. Inside, he found a horrific, graphic scene. Poor Evelyn was sprawled out on her bed, naked, with her organs outside of her body. And just like Teresa, Evelyn was brutally tortured and sexually assaulted. Friends, laying next to Evelyn, her 6-year-old son had been shot in the head. Like, I hope they hurry up and catch this psychopath, bury him under the prison, or give him the death penalty. Like, he needs like a slow, torturous punishment. You know, in the very beginning, I was feeling really sorry for him because, you know, like I felt like his parents and the doctors kind of let him down. And I know that because he's not on his medicine, his schizophrenia is like really making him into this psychotic monster. But I also feel like he's also just evil. I feel like it's a mix of him suffering from schizophrenia as well as just being evil. So more officers arrive to the scene and they're investigating the crime scene. During this whole time, Evelyn's phone is ringing non-stop. But like they're not answering it because they're like, okay, her 13-year-old son is in school. So, you know, if it's the school, they'll keep him there and we'll deal with that later. At least he's safe. Well, about an hour or so after, a couple arrived to Evelyn's front door, Karen and Tony Ferreira, and they informed the officers that they were looking for their 20-month-old son who Evelyn had been babysitting. Oh, friends, oh my God, my stomach just dropped. Like, what do you mean your 20-month-old son? I thought all the victims were here. We have Dan on the floor, Evelyn and Jason on the bed. And you mean to tell me that there's a baby who's just under 2 that's missing from the crime scene? Oh God, my heart goes out to the Ferreira family. So the police, they start like searching the house. Like maybe the baby hid in a closet, I don't know, but they're searching the house and there's no sign that a baby was in that house. So now with renewed urgency, the police is like, what the heck? We have to find this baby. While they were searching, they did find a .22 caliber bullet hole in a bloody pillow that was in the crib of one of the bedrooms. Friends, they ran tests of that bloody bathtub, and the blood and the gore that was found in that bathtub belonged to baby David. This is so sad because all these victims, they couldn't even really defend themselves against this monster. But a 2-year-old definitely can't even attempt to fight this 27-year-old man. So, every lead that Lieutenant Ray Biondi was receiving was a dead end until the morning of January 28th, when 2 detectives, Bill Roberts and Carol Daly, received a call from a retired county marshal. This marshal told the 2 detectives about an incident that involved a creepy man and his daughter-in-law, Nancy Holden. Nancy says that she noticed that Richard Chase had a strong resemblance to the police sketch that she saw on TV. And she explained to the police officers how on the morning of January 23rd, 1978, She was grocery shopping when Richard approached her. She immediately got bad vibes from him, but, awkwardly smiled and exchanged small talk with him while trying to cut the conversation short. She said that Richard didn't pick up on either of her cues, or he chose to ignore them. She said it took her a moment to even realize who he was because in high school, he was well-groomed and intelligent, but the man who stood in front of her today was far from that description. She said his pants and his orange jacket were dirty with something she could not make out. She said there was so much grime beneath his fingernails that she could see it from where she stood. You guys, oh my God, that's so gross. Imagine, you just have your hands down. There's a good amount of distance between you. I'm pretty sure she had the shopping cart in front of her to keep him at a distance. And she was able to see how filthy his fingernails were. And she said that his hair was greasy and matted, his face was stained, and something yellow was encrusted around his lips. She said that he had a rather strong and unpleasant smell to him. Oh, that's disgusting. So, of course, she tries to excuse herself. She's like, hey, I'm on a tight schedule here, Richard. I can't continue to small talk with you. I have to get this grocery shopping done. He walks away, so she's like, oh, finally, this weirdo's gone. Soon as she walked down a different aisle, guess who appeared? That's right. Scary and creepy Richard Chase. So, this guy, maybe he's completely oblivious to how she's reacting towards him. Because after this, he's like, hey, Nancy, can I get a ride? I'm not going far. I just need a ride from you. Of course, she's like, no, I have somewhere to be. I'm just trying to finish up grocery shopping. She hurries to the cash register, pays for her groceries. And honestly, if someone's freaking me out like that, I would have just left the shopping cart right there. And I would have I would have sprinted to my car. I don't care if I'm wearing heels or not. I would have been gone because I'm a scaredy cat. That's why. I'm a scaredy cat who likes to read about true crime and share true crime stories. Go figure. So she was paying for her groceries. He comes up behind her to buy a single can of orange soda. Poor Nancy grabs her bags and rushes to her car. As soon as she entered her car, now friends, let me tell you how fast she was moving, because back in the day, they didn't have cars where you could just press the button to lock or unlock all of the doors. They didn't have a little key fob where you can press the button to unlock your door as you're walking to your car. She had to run to her car with grocery bags in her hand, put the key in the lock, unlock the door, and I'm hoping that all 3 car doors were already locked, but she had to put the key in the keyhole, open her door, throw her groceries in, make sure all of the doors are locked, and lock her door before putting her key in the ignition. And I'm pretty sure her hands were shaking the whole time, because I know when I get really scared, the nerves in my hands really start to shake. So I can only imagine how stressed out poor Nancy was. But luckily, she was able to lock all of her doors before Richard reached her car and began pulling on the door handle. She said she immediately started the ignition and backed out of the parking spot while he was still holding on to the door handle. He didn't let go until she sped away. Poor Nancy, but I am so grateful that you were smart enough to not let him in that car with you. and that you were able to get away. Because God only knows what Richard would have done. So, after the detectives spoke with Nancy, they ran Richard's info through the DMV computer and saw that his picture was very similar to the sketches that they had on the killer. They're like, you know what? It's time to pay this psychopath a visit. They go to his apartment, but he's no longer living in apartment 12 of the apartment complex. So the detectives are like, crap, like we're so close yet still so far away. Let's go back and go through his criminal records. Maybe we can find an updated address. So they start searching through his arrest history, and when they get to the year 1977, the address showed that he was 3 doors down from apartment 12 of the apartment complex that they visited earlier that day. So they're like, oh, well, let's not waste any more time. And later that evening, 3 officers go back to the apartment in an unmasked police car. They knock on his door, but no one answered. And without a warrant, the landlord couldn't let them into his apartment. But she was like, hey guys, this is what I can do for you because I do want to help you out. Right next to his apartment is a vacant apartment. You guys can go in there and listen through the walls. The walls are very thin. Listen and see if you guys can hear him. Hopefully that helps. So Detective Bill Roberts placed his ear on the wall and he heard movement. He then called Robert on the phone and acted as if they previously met. But Robert Chase is a very paranoid man and hung up on Detective Bill Roberts. Then Detective Bill Roberts called his lead detective, Ray Biondi, for advice. And together they came up with a plan to trick him into coming outside. The 3 officers that were at his apartment complex spoke loudly about how they were leaving, and through the peephole, Richard Chase was able to see them disperse in 3 different directions. So Richard's like, okay, they're gone. I'm gonna go outside now and get rid of some of this evidence. That way they can't arrest me. Moments later, Richard steps outside carrying a McDonald's Happy Meal box. As he's making his way to his car, Officer Wayne Irie jumps out at him. Richard quickly turns around only to find his path being blocked by Detective Ken Baker. Richard's eyes were wide with shock, and he tried to throw the McDonald's box at Detective Baker in hopes to slip by him and make a run for it. But Detective Baker was like, buddy, we got you. And before Richard knew it, he was on the ground because Detective Baker had hit him in the head with the butt of his gun. But being the psycho that he is, Richard jumps back up and he's trying to get ready to make a run for it. But Officer Wayne Irie is like, oh no, buddy, you're not going anywhere. And he tackles him to the ground just like a football player. So, friends, you're probably thinking, oh my God, this is it. They finally caught this bastard, right? Richard is like, oh, you want to arrest me? You're gonna have to work for it. And as skinny as Richard is, he gave the 2 officers, Detective Ken Baker and Officer Wayne Irie, a run for their money. He was wrestling with them, like squirming out of any holds that they had. And the 2 officers really struggled to keep him down and get the handcuffs on him. He didn't stop fighting until there was 1 handcuff on him and his other arm was pinned to the ground. With as skinny and malnourished as Richard Chase is, you would probably think he was extremely weak. But I'm telling you, like when people are extremely crazy and evil, they have like this extra strength. Detective Bill Roberts finally joins his partners outside and finds the following. a tan-colored wallet that he found in one of Richard's pockets with a driver's license that belonged to Dan Meredith. Remember Evelyn's 51-year-old boyfriend? Inside the wallet were pictures of 36-year-old Evelyn and her 6-year-old son, Jason. Inside of the McDonald's Happy Meal box were a pair of bloody rubber gloves, bloody rags, a .22 caliber bullet, a key ring with 16 keys, David Ferreira's diaper pin, and an envelope with brain matter sealed inside. I mean, right there, case is closed, right? Like, you're going down for sure. But where is baby David Ferreira? In the back of the police car, Richard ignored the questions asked by the officers and continued to say, "I haven't done anything. All I did in my apartment was kill a few dogs, a few rabbits. Boo-hoo. I don't even understand why I'm being arrested. And that McDonald's box I threw at you, that's not even mine. I was just, picking up the litter." Once they're at the station, they read him his rights and give him a card with the rights typed on it to ensure that he understood everything. Richard Chase denied knowing about the murders, and when asked if he ever killed anyone, all of a sudden his eyes were teary and he asks the police, "My apartment's a lot cleaner, huh?" What? Richard, bogus, because we're not even talking about your apartment. I want to know who you killed. So, that answer right there definitely proves, what a lunatic they're dealing with. So, that has nothing to do with anything. And the cops said that they were actually just as confused as I am. So, hopefully he starts to answer some of these questions. The police continues to question him, and he continues to deny everything. He says, "No, officer, I wasn't bothering anyone. I was half asleep when I opened the door and was tackled by your officers. The only thing in my McDonald's box was paper. I'm telling you, you have me mistaken for someone else." Really, Richard? The officers continue to question him, and he continues to say that he's only ever killed puppies and dogs. Guy, that's still a horrible thing to do. While he's being interviewed, Detectives Don Haybecker and Fred Holman goes to his apartment to search for baby David, but they still have no luck. However, there were several other things that caught their attention. The two detectives said that the entire place stunk of rot and decay. Why? Because of all of the blood that stained nearly every inch of his apartment, along with the feces on the floor of his bedroom. The detective said that there was blood all over the bedroom, all over the bathroom, and there was a huge puddle of blood in his kitchen. There was a blood-stained loaf of bread that sat on his couch. The unwashed dishes were stained with blood. And the detectives also found a blood-soaked hatchet and machete. Back at the police station, Richard was taken to jail before any of the detectives were able to get a sensible answer from him. They questioned him for hours and had absolutely nothing to show for it. On his first night in the Sacramento County Jail, the other inmates went crazy because they heard about what he did and they did not want him alive. It's on record that some of the other inmates peed in cups and threw it in his jail cell while others threw feces at him. Friends, you really gotta hate someone to throw feces at them. In order to protect him, the guards ended up moving him into solitary so he could stay alive long enough to stand trial. For 6 weeks, Deputy William Schneider worked 18-hour shifts searching for baby David Ferreira. Deputy Schneider retrieved baby clothes that David wore so that way their canine could track the scent. They still had no luck. Finally, in late March, the local police received a call from a church that their janitor found the body of a child in a cardboard box hidden behind the building. Baby David Ferreira was still wearing the Sesame Street overalls. He had been decapitated. His blonde head. Sorry, guys. His blonde head was hidden beneath his own torso. Friends, Richard is not just crazy. He is evil. He is so evil. Oh God, this poor baby. So, during the trial, Richard, of course, denied everything. He said that the Italians were out to get him. Then he said that he was set up by his neighbors who had been poisoning him for years with iodine and mercury. Finally, he began to share the sick thoughts that's been running through his head. He tells the court that his heart was shrinking and he didn't want to die. And in order to save his own life, he had to end the lives of others. It wasn't what he wanted to do, but it was the only way. The only thing that could save him was the blood of other humans. He didn't want to think about what he had done or remember it. He just wanted the pain to end. That same June of 1978, up until the start of his trial in 1979, Ronald W. Takaderman, and I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your last name wrong, the lead prosecutor on the case, studied the extensive history of blood drinking rituals and cannibalism. He, along with 2 court-appointed prosecutors, studied Richard and eventually found him sane and guilty. On May 8th, 1979, 29-year-old Richard Trenton Chase was found guilty of first-degree murder of Ambrose Griffin, Teresa Wayman, Evelyn Miroth, Daniel Meredith, Jason Miroth, and baby David Ferreira. He was sentenced to death row at the San Quentin State Penitentiary, but never made it to his date with the gas chamber. On December 26, 1980, Richard was found dead in his cell by an overdose of hoarded antidepressant medication. Finally, the horror was over. All right, friends, this one broke my heart. I hate to hear about crimes against children. This is the last episode of the Richard Chase / Sacramento vampire case. Let me know what you think. Stay safe. Please like, share, comment, and follow. And I will talk to you all soon. Bye.